Attention, everybody. The views and opinions expressed on the show are not necessarily those of Acts Ministry, Acts Media Group, and/or their affiliate and supported ministries and/or nonprofits.
What's that
Now,
noise?
here's the man with the plan to put gold in your hand, Tony Hammett.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Matt. Your introductions are always wonderful. Anyway, hey, we've got a great show in store for you today, and it is absolutely fantastic out there in southwest Missouri. Hopefully, you will get a chance to get outside today. I think it's actually supposed to get up to maybe like 50. And I'm real excited for this morning's show because I have a special guest here. Miss Lorna Hammock is here, and we're going to talk about all kinds of things here in a minute regarding insurance. And so we will have a fun-packed show for you. I told Lorna that I'd probably do just a little housekeeping, and then we'd get into kind of a interview as far as some of the topics that are, you know, very much important these days, especially with it now being December 2nd. You know, if you are someone who watches this show week in, week out, I have the devotional, which is our stewardship class. And last week I started with one for Thanksgiving because it was the day before Thanksgiving. It only had 3 lessons, so I had the second lesson today. And I will take and go through that real quick so we can move on to the pricing and stuff. It's titled, Thanksgiving Preserves Good. Have you ever wondered why there is so much bad in the world? James, in so many words, ponders the same conundrum in his book. In James 4:1-2, he answers our question. What causes quarrels and what causes fights among you? Is it not this, that your passions are at war within you? You desire and do not have, so you murder. You covet and cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel. James blames you and me. We, like Adam and Eve, just can't stand the thought of anyone sitting on the throne of our lives except us. Anyone who threatens our view of the good life is perceived as a threat to our existence. All this fighting for our rights originates in our sin nature. The tragic truth is that though we sport the slogan that we know what's best for us, we, in all reality, do not. Our pursuit of our desires only causes us to kill each other, hate each other, compete with one another, and enslave one another in the service of the King of I. As you read James' words today, consider the conflicts in your life, and instead of looking at them with a victim mentality, consider how you've contributed your selfish mentality. Consider also the words of Timothy as you study. He is going to note, in essence, the same thing as James, but he's going to take it one step further. Not only do our desires seek to get what they want, but then we start trying to lord our wants over others. We start to create laws, judgments, and stipulations for people so that they will fit into our ways. This is called religion. Timothy is not trying to free us up to do whatever we want in the name of Thanksgiving, but by thinking the right object, in all cases God the Creator, we protect ourselves from ourselves. In this study today, consider how thankfulness brings you under control and causes you to begin putting things, people, and circumstances into their proper place. Everything is used rightly when we honor God through thankfulness. And I almost didn't read that one because it was still kind of the Thanksgiving Day one, and but I'm glad I did. That had some merit and some stuff that I could relate to, and so forth. What'd you think of that?
I found it very relevant, so I'm grateful that you went ahead and shared that. Right now, I think even post-Thanksgiving, in a very COVID world, we desperately need to be focused on what we personally can be doing and not what the circumstances are doing to us. So it gives us a little bit more power through God.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree and stuff. Quickly, I'm going to go through some pricing, and then we're going to get into the most important part of the show today, besides the stewardship course. And for those of you that this might be your first time tuning in, this show is all about alternative assets. And we spend a good portion of our time talking about gold and silver. So the next prices I'm going to be giving here in a moment are going to be on precious metals and base metals and Bitcoin. And if you were paying attention last week, as I've always said, Bitcoin it's not for the faint of heart. I mean, we had some volatility, and sometimes the swings were quite large. Like I've always said, it's probably not for widows and orphans, and it's only for people that what you put into it probably is something that if you lost, you would be able to sleep at night still. But even with that said, let me get into some pricing, and we'll hurry along in our show here. These first few prices are going to be on the precious metals, and the prices are by ounce. So, for example, gold is $18.22.90 an ounce. Silver's $23.97 an ounce. Platinum is up; it's up to $1,018 an ounce. Palladium is $2,419 an ounce, and rhodium is $15,800 an ounce. Boy, that's up there. These next ones are going to be base metals, and the prices are by the pound. And the first one is copper, which is now $3.47 a pound. I got to tell you, back in the first part of the year, maybe right before summer there, second quarter type time frame, I was telling everybody that copper was making some moves, and sure enough, I mean, back then it was less than $3 a pound. So it's at $3.47 today. Nickel is $7.26 a pound. Aluminum 92 cents a pound. Zinc $1.24. Lead 93 cents. And uranium, remember Ace's favorite, is $29.45 a pound. Crude oil is $44.87 a barrel. And the Dow Jones Industrial Average opened up down 97 points. It's at 29,726. So those are all of our prices for the day. And I've always said, one, past performance is not indicative of future performance. And two, the best strategy with some of these is what I call dollar cost averaging. If you do decide you wanted to get into gold, for example, or Bitcoin or whatever it may be, if you're a little bit timid, or just thinking maybe it's kind of towards its high, you might want to just put in, $50 a week or $100 a week, or, whatever is your budget. I mean, some people I work with, it might be $10,000 a week. But the point is with dollar cost averaging is that if the price goes up, you're excited because your holdings are up. If the price goes down, you're excited because it's a sale. In fact, last week, gold got down below $1,800 an ounce for a day or two, and I was calling some of my folks and just telling them, hey, there's a gold sale. In fact, it kind of coincided with Black Friday, so I was trying to make those all kind of gel and stuff, and a few people were able to take advantage of it and everything. But anyway, rather than me ramble, and I've got my special guest here, let's get into talking with Lorna. And if you haven't figured it out with the same last names, Lorna is my wife, so I have to be on my best behavior today. I'm a little bit nervous having her right here in the studio with me, but I think we can come up with some things that are very timely. Lorna, what is it that you do?
I am actually an insurance agent.
Shock and surprise.
I know, it is hard to believe. It is hard to believe, but I do not do the same sorts of things that you do for the most part. If you were going to draw a Venn diagram, we only have a very small intersecting piece, which predominantly is life insurance, but I do property and casualty insurance. So homes, rental homes, secondary homes, if you're a renter, renters policies, autos, RVs, pets, jewelry. I can even do earthquake and flood. I do a little bit of everything, but I don't do what you do, so there you go.
Well, and how long have you been doing that?
Close to a decade.
And I know from sharing the same house with you that you're very passionate about property and casualty.
I am. I think it's a bit of an illness, actually. I am very passionate. He's being nice because there have been a number of family dinners that have been interrupted, or movie nights, or, whatever, even the drive over, because I do believe that it's the monthly expenses on a lot of families that make all the difference. And so when I can help with that, when I can bring down that nut just a little bit, that helps me sleep at night, just knowing that I'm serving a greater purpose for the families, especially of this area. So, yep, That's why I'm passionate.
Well, and ever since COVID-19 started, earlier this year, back in, what was that, February, I guess, is the first start of what was coming. I guess we didn't really know the full impact of what was coming. But anyway, once Lorna's office was closed because of COVID, she took over the living room in our house. And so my office is in the basement. We've got a fully finished walkout basement.
To be fair, his office has always been in the basement. It's not like I moved him because of
Right.
me working from. I don't want that to be, the going news.
No,
that
no,
I
no,
somehow moved you out of your space.
Well, remember years ago, you used it as an office for a short while.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
We've got a room downstairs. It's just the perfect size and good internet and all that kind of good stuff and stuff. But the living room, which is now her office, is directly above my office. So I can hear her sometimes when she gets into some of these passionate discussions, either with her insureds, giving them hopefully good news, but sometimes more with companies that she's dealing with on their behalf and trying to get things settled for them and stuff. So it's quite entertaining, to say the least. But anyway, now I know that you had something that you really wanted to focus on today, and I think you've already kind of tipped us off. But what is that?
It's that little sliver of the Venn diagram, my friend. It is that life insurance piece, and I have been especially impassioned about that in this last part of 2020, predominantly because, so as we watch our industries, one of the great concerns and kind of those, weird nebulous questions that are out there because of COVID is what happens to insurability if you have COVID, if you recover from COVID, what's the long-term effects, et cetera, et cetera. So there's that feeling like, what happens on the life insurance side, because anybody who gets life insurance is still going to have to answer some basic medical questions, right? Even if you have a guaranteed issue, they're still going to ask you the questions. So my goal is to get some families some life insurance that's going to guarantee their insurability, even if it's very, very inexpensive, just term life, and that's usually the cheapest, right? Just some term life insurance on kids and on themselves so that, heaven forbid, they're either diagnosed with COVID at some point, they are still insurable, or if they ended up passing from COVID, that there would be some financial support coming in for that family. I mean, again, nobody wants to talk about life insurance until they know when they're going to die, which is neat. And if anybody knows that, please tell me how that works, because as far as I know, nobody really knows when that day and time is. Only the Lord knows that. So unless you know that day and time, and can plan accordingly, which, again, most of us can't, we have to assume that it could be any day, right? So we live our lives to the best example that we can be each and every day, and the same way that we would plan for our families, the ones that are left behind. And part of that, again, is just, in my opinion, being a good steward, making sure that, heaven forbid, something happens to you, that, the kids are still living in the same house, that your spouse doesn't immediately have to go back to work or whatever. I mean, the trauma of losing somebody that you love, as we well know, is, it's not something that you just breeze past. It takes time.
Yeah, and especially in this day and age where so many people are starting to gradually get evicted because they can't make their mortgage payments or their rent payments, and they're in food lines that in some cases are miles long, and I know we're always grateful for things that have come our way and the resources.
Incredibly blessed.
Yeah.
Incredibly blessed.
But can you imagine if you lost your partner and all of a sudden they didn't have life insurance and, you had to leave the home, especially if there's kiddos involved and all that kind of stuff? That would just really be awful.
Well, I think that's why you're right. I think that's why that's such a weight on my heart right now, because I think to myself, we are incredibly blessed, but very few families in this area especially are more than, maybe a paycheck or two away from being in those same lines, and if you can put together something to just put something in place for that safety and security, do it. I know it sounds like a sacrifice, but for some families, especially young families, gosh, you're talking $30, $40 a month maybe on a life insurance policy that might allow that spouse to stay in the house.
Well, and one of the things that's kind of interesting about this little overlap we have with it being life insurance is that from my background and what I have at my disposal, I can go into one or two of the databases I use, and I can search for the best policy or top 5 or 10. I mean, basically one of my services I go to probably searches 100 different insurance companies. And so, for example, I can go in, let's say you're a 35-year-old male, non-smoker, and you're looking for $1 million policy and you live in Missouri. I mean, those are usually the things, that are the key variables and stuff, and you're healthy. I mean, so I can go in and look at that and, come back and say, okay, XYZ is the lowest premium, ABC is the second lowest, and so forth like that. And we had a case here, I should say Lorna had a case here a couple weeks ago where the main company she gets to use for life insurance is pretty good at it. And the insured or soon to be insured was saying that they might want to go out and kind of shop around. And I said, why would you want to shop around? I'll go downstairs and I'll just make sure that this is in good order and stuff like that. And sure enough, I came upstairs a few minutes later, and the one that she has out of all those companies for that particular case, now remember, it's case by case. Each person's got different variables as far as age and health and stuff like that, but it was number one. And so, when she's dealing with life insurance, I'm usually in favor of her writing the case because I know that she's dealing with reputable companies, and she's writing more here and there and stuff like that. So,
but I don't do, for example, I don't do variable annuities because again, that kind of falls into a different bracket of things, and that's kind of more your cup of tea. And so that part has been really good because when we have people that want a totally different type of product than what I have available, if they know both of us, right, then they just kind of can bounce between the two of us. But, really, my thought is find out what you can qualify for. Because that's another thing that's been really upsetting is that I have people that I've talked to that said, I didn't think that I could qualify for life insurance. They had just been scared enough by something that may have happened 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Well, and that's just it. I mean, the one thing that I think is very important to understand is the life insurance business has changed so much over the last 20, 30 years, especially the last 10 years. And you no longer have to die to get the main benefit, which is, the life insurance benefit and so forth. I mean, if that happened and your beneficiary, which is probably your spouse, in most cases, gets the proceeds, I mean, it is tax-free, which is, kind of handy at that point.
It's big.
But a lot of policies these days have living benefits. And those are benefits you can tap into while you're still around. Some of them have critical illness, some have chronic illness, some of them have terminal illness benefits that if you are...
Some have long-term care.
Some have long-term care.
Which can be big.
And, that's just really, really handy because, I think the statistics, in fact, I think you told me this a couple years ago, 3% of us will ever use our homeowner insurance for replacing our home because of a disaster, and like 17 or 18% of us will ever use our car insurance because the car got totaled. But something like 73 or 74% of us being, adults, human beings in the country of the USA, will need long-term care assistance of some kind. Maybe it's residential care, maybe it's in-home care. skilled nursing, whatever it may be. But 73% of us are going to need something, and that's all based on these activities of daily living. And the short term, when you're talking to people in the industry, they call them ADLs, activities of daily living, and there's 6 of them. And they're things like, are you able to dress yourself? And are you able to feed yourself? And are you able to go to the bathroom by yourself and, transfer yourself and so forth? So, the minute you can't do 2 of those 6 ADLs, you can usually trigger the long-term care benefit or some of these other benefits if your policy has that. So I guess one reason I went down this path was just to stress, if you have an old life insurance policy, that's more than, let's say, 5 years old, I would encourage you to get a review. And it's not so much that I'm ever going to stress, trying to replace something, because you got that 5 years ago or 10 years ago and you were younger, so it's probably less expensive. We're going to probably encourage you to keep that. But there may be some new features and benefits out there that would be, an enhancement to your overall program. And whether or not you replace that old policy or not, that's going to be your decision. But the addition of some of those features and benefits could really, be a plus for your, let's call it your insurance portfolio, your overall coverage and stuff. But
there was an article that I read actually within the last week about, it was specific to millennials, but of course it also probably would include Gen X, but that they are, again, the new sandwich generation, where you're taking care of kids, but you're also taking care of elderly parents. If you have a loved one, whether it's a parent, a cousin, a friend, a neighbor, whatever, and you have the type of relationship where you can help them find that policy and get it to a professional for a review, that could be a huge help to them. Because again, what we've found is that a lot of our older folks, especially if they've stayed mentally pretty sharp, and we certainly know a few of those, they get very good at hiding the lack of ability to do some of those 6 things, right? They don't tell you that they're not eating because they just either don't have the energy, they don't have the dexterity, whatever. They don't tell you that. They just start kind of losing weight and you're noticing things. They don't tell you that they're having issues, the toilet issues, bathroom. Nobody's going to talk about that, right? But if you know that they have something that could benefit them on a life insurance policy that could give them the care that they need above and beyond just checking in on them, right? There are people trained, some fantastic individuals actually out in the community here in the general area that are trained to come help with those things. And life insurance can fund that, help fund that, if they know that it's available to them. But a lot of times, you've written this policy, or they've gotten a policy 10 years ago, 20 years ago, they've forgotten about it. It's collected dust in a file somewhere. And now would be the time for them to know that that's something that they have available to them to help.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that I was going to mention on these new features and benefits that have come into the industry the last decade or so is that there are different kinds of insurance. As far as now, there's a lot of guaranteed issue policies. Now, I will tell you that guaranteed issue is going to be more expensive than underwritten insurance, where they're going to want to have some blood and urine and an attending physician statement and, really kind of, look at your medical history and pharmaceutical history and things like that. But the guaranteed issues are out there. I've got a few companies that, we've had to rely on from time to time just because of the person's health situation. There's, believe it or not, there's companies out there that specialize in different maladies, I guess you'd call them, different things. Like, for example, I know one company that will write diabetics all day long. And there's most companies where if you're diabetic, you get declined. And so, and it just goes hand in hand. There's just whatever you want to think of, whether it's cancer. I've had people that had cancer, and once they're cancer free, some companies will say 5 years, some will say 7 years. It's company by company what what that company and the underwriters are deciding to focus on and stuff. But once they've gotten, let's say in this example, past 5 years from having cancer, and it's still in remission and all that kind of stuff, they can get life insurance.
Right, and that's exactly what I wanted us to talk just a little bit about is don't get scared about something that somebody said, a year ago, 5 years ago. Check, review, call someone who has the ability to help, because there are products out there for almost anyone. And you talked about guaranteed issue. There's guaranteed issue, and then there's simplified issue.
That's true.
As well.
Yep.
So simplified issue is going to be more medical questions. And if you have a few things, they're still willing to take you, right? And then there's fully underwritten. So there's any range of different options for these folks that would allow them to have some form of financial protection for themselves or for their families. And again, it's a conversation that most people don't want to have. And I get it. It's awkward. And it can be very stressful for people. But I promise you it's a conversation worth having. Because it's definitely not a conversation you want to have after the fact.
Well, that's true, and I will tell you those questions on the simplified issue ones. In the industry, we call those knockout questions, and and usually there's from 6 to, I've seen as many as 18 or 19.
20.
Yeah, 20
Yeah.
in some cases and stuff. And the other day I was working with a client, and we were starting to go through these knockout questions, and like the first question was, have you ever had AIDS? And this person had never. She kind of laughed at me. The answer was no. But then the next questions were, are you currently in a nursing home? When we were sitting in her kitchen. And so that was no. And then, are you currently in a hospital bed? Most of the questions were just very simplistic. And they do get into eventually, and when they have 20, things like, have you in the last 7 years had, and then there's a stream of different things going on as far as surgeries or this or that and stuff like that. But for the most part, unless somebody has a lot of things that have gone on here recently, a lot of times these knockout questions are fairly.
They're fairly basic,
Yeah.
really. They're not anything that you need be scared of or anything else. They're usually fairly standard and basic. We do have to ask them. That's the part that I always laugh about is, can we just skip these? I'm healthy. Well, you would think so. But part of what we have to do as being agents is we have to read through them so you can answer each of the questions. And we've been thorough because I can't make the assumption. Maybe you do have a hospital bed and it's in the other room and I don't know, you're just propped up in this chair for this few minutes. Doubtful, but we still have to ask the questions. And so I always feel a little bit like the people that draw blood when you have to go through the whole questionnaire thing. But for the most part, you're absolutely right. A lot of them are so easily covered that it's nothing to stress about, but people do.
We've gone far enough in the show, and we haven't said one time how someone can reach you. If somebody wanted to reach out to you, how would they do that?
Well, I am Lorna Hammock. You are welcome to call my cell phone. I'm going to put this on the air, I guess. 417-225-2011. Or you can also call me at my office phone. It is 417-414-6366. Or you can reach out to Tony for that matter, and he's really he's looking at me like I do not want to be passing messages to you, but he actually is. He's very, very, he's very good at it. He's very responsible. He's willing to tell me if someone calls. So if you reach out to Tony, that's something that you're also able to do is let him know that you would like for me to call you back, and I will happily do that. And you can really find me on Facebook as well. There's Lorna Hammock. If you want to look me up that way, it's LornaHammock. Or you can look me up. That would be probably my professional page will come up there. Or you can look up Lorna Hammock Lorna Losley Hammock. So, and that one will be my personal page. But either way, if you want to reach out to me there, if you want to send me Facebook Messenger, if you want to reach me on Instagram, I am all of those places. I'm also on LinkedIn, but usually I'm only checking in on that one a couple times a week. I know. So if you were looking for me to message you back on LinkedIn, I probably should check that more frequently. But
Are you at liberty to give your website?
yeah, absolutely. And you're going to have to say it because every time I do it, I mess up something, and then I'm scared they're going to go to a 404. The site's not available.
Well, you know what? Okay, so if you're going to rely on me, let me do this just so we get it right the first time, and that is because I cheated. I put her website like literally in my phone.
Right. So up until now, I actually haven't mentioned the company I work for. I work for Liberty Mutual, and I have obviously. I work for Liberty Mutual. I have a breadth of products through them. And then on top of that, Liberty Mutual is the most progressive captive company that I've ever seen. One of the reasons why I came here to work. And they have allowed us to have some abilities above and beyond that. So if you are interested in looking at what the market as a whole is able to do for you on auto or home or life or all of those things, just give me a call or text me. You can text me at the 417-225-2011, and I'd be happy to have that conversation with you about what it is that you're looking for and where best to look for it.
And I found that website. It's www.libertymutual.com/agent/Lorna, LORNA -hammock, HAMMOCK. So www.libertymutual.com/agent/Lorna-hammock. And you know, the neat thing about her website, I will tell you this, because I actually learned some stuff when I went to it, is it lists all of the different kinds of insurance that she has to offer. And you know, I think earlier you said something about pet insurance, but she's got pet insurance, and she's got.
I can insure your smartwatch.
I mean, there's just your rings,
cheap,
your diamonds, you know, whatever. It's just there's a plethora of insurance products back there that she can use to increase your coverage or give you first-time coverage and so forth. But
let me interject, however, that just because I have it doesn't mean that I'm going to push it on you. Okay, that's not how I work. My goal is to have a conversation with you so I know what your needs genuinely are, and we can provide the coverage for those things. Okay, so I know that a lot of people have had the experience where they've called an insurance agent and then they just, you know, and then there's this, and then there's this, and then there's. That's really not how it works in my world. I want you to tell me what's important to you, what needs you have, and I'll ask you questions, but we're not gonna, you know, I'm not browbeating you into going to buy a pet so that you can have pet insurance. It's just, we're not doing that. So, I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
There's a sale on dog food. Well, we don't have a dog. Well, there's a sale.
There's a sale. Quick, get a dog. Hold on a minute. I've got some people.
Well, you know, and a moment ago we were talking about how some of these companies specialize in stuff. While I was listening to Lorna, I remember I was on a webinar yesterday, and the subject matter was a final expense policy from a company that I work with, and the gentleman that was making the presentation, he just to show you how these companies will specialize. He said, "Okay, we need to know if they smoke cigarettes." And, you know, because there's usually tobacco yes or tobacco no on these kinds of applications and stuff. And he goes, let me make this really, really clear. He goes, that's all they're interested in. If they smoke cigars, they smoke a pipe, they smoke cannabis, they smoke, you know, anything besides cigarettes, they don't care. The company underwriting that final expense, they can chew. which amazed me because I got to tell you, in my
Wow.
my experience, usually if somebody chews, the cost of insurance goes up drastically because of all the risks with
And again,
with
that
chewing.
goes into that tobacco use.
Yes.
But you're saying that they really didn't care as long as it was
That particular
specific.
company,
Wow.
yeah,
All right.
they just were interested and that was just in the last 12 months. So even if you smoke cigarettes and you'd quit 12 months and a day ago, you know, you would be able to check no on the tobacco and stuff. So it's amazing to me how
Products for every person.
yeah, how specific some of these companies can get. I mean, a couple years ago, I had an agent up in Montana, and he was trying to write I mean, it was a large case, several $1,000,000 on a lady, and she had a nodule on her pituitary gland, and nobody would touch it. And we went in and, you know, did some searching and stuff, and we found a company, and it was an A-rated company that were okay with that. I mean, they needed to, get the attending physician statement and kind of analyze it and stuff. But it was such a small nodule that they went ahead and issued her. I want to say it was like a $3 million Universal Life, I think it was. It's going back a couple years ago. But anyway, my point is that they can be very, very specific. Now, here's something I want to ask, and I didn't coach you before. But of all the life insurance cases you've written, and or I guess home and auto, what's the most rewarding case that you've had a chance to help somebody with? I mean, if you can think of one.
Oh gosh. You know what, honestly, you would think that I would have one particular one that was just phenomenal.
Well, while you're thinking of it, this is what made me think of it. And of course, we're going to keep, redact everybody's names and everything's confidential and all that kind of stuff. But years ago, you gave me a lead, and it had to go to one of those guaranteed issue policies. And I just remember that person, was very challenged from a health standpoint.
Oh.
And I got to tell you, when we found the right company, which I think was Gerber, and was able to provide this person with, it was like a $25,000 policy, delivering that, this person was so excited that, they were able to get insured and stuff. That one sticks out in my mind because, I knew of some of the health issues, and I just was like, oh, the only thing that's going to work is guaranteed issue. And to see the look on the face of this client was just, really rewarding, to be able to help them out because they loved their family so much. They didn't want to, be a burden if something should happen to them. And that's the case. I've been in the insurance industry for a while, and, somebody will always say, well, I don't want to talk about it. I want to do this or, whatever. And the bottom line is, do you love somebody or do you owe money? And if you love somebody, you probably should have some life insurance, because that's really what you're talking about is, if something should happen to you, especially if you're the primary breadwinner. But, even more these days, sometimes if you're not
What if you're the primary caregiver?
Exactly. Golly, sometimes when you start looking at replacing, either partner, it just gets to be mind-boggling, the costs involved and stuff. So if you love somebody or you owe somebody, you probably want to have some life insurance. And did you think of a case?
You brought up the life insurance ones. For me, the day-to-day saving people money on home and auto, I know everybody hears the commercials and you can save up to whatever. But for me, it's very real. And I have the blessing of hearing those voices when, even just folks that are on a fixed income or families that are just, it's a little tighter than it really should have to be. They're just stressed out. Even if I can save, gosh, $20-$30 a month, that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but that can make a big difference, right? It can make, for if you're feeling more, competent, that's a pizza night. But for some folks, that may be the difference between keeping the lights on or off. Insurance, auto insurance is required by law. Okay, so you have to have it. So having it at a reasonable price is huge, right? Because it's a required expense. It's kind of like your utilities or other things that are just required. Renter's insurance can be huge. Again, because people say, oh, I don't need renter's insurance. I don't have anything that's worth covering. Did you know that that's actually where they come up with the coverage for anything that's in your vehicle? Like if your vehicle
I do know that, yeah.
Yeah, so if your vehicle's broken into and they take everything inside your vehicle, guess what? That's actually covered on your renters or your homeowners under your personal property. So again, this time of year when people are toting around packages and stuff like that, huge. It's very important. And gosh, renter's insurance is like, I don't know, $12-15 a month on average. I mean, it's just sometimes cheaper than that. So, I mean, those are it's the nickel and dime stuff to me that can make a big difference to these families. But like I said, the life insurance, those are the ones that usually make me real weepy. So I'm not going to do that today. But I promised myself I wouldn't cry. But I will tell you that if you have had the experience of losing someone, in my case, just having the experience of losing an insured, the spouse of an insured couple, for example, and knowing that they are getting a check or delivering a check, it's just huge. Knowing that they're getting some sort of financial help, and I know that sounds, it's second to prayer for sure, right? We always say, gosh, I'll pray for you and I'll fix you a meal and I'll do whatever I can in that moment of loss. And I realize that it sounds really materialistic and it's not meant to be, but boy, that money really helps.
Well,
because
sure
it's
does.
a practical way of helping. And it's something that they may not even have remembered setting up, but it's, my gosh, it can make all the difference in the world just to know I can take a breath. I can grieve. I know that the bills are paid for the next month or 2 or 3 or 6 or whatever that plan is. So I can grieve.
This year, the year of COVID, and so many folks were losing their jobs for different reasons, especially if they were in the travel industry or the entertainment industry or some of these other industries where they're just decimated with what's happening in COVID. What is your response when somebody you ask them about life insurance and they say, "Oh, I've got it through my employer"?
And that's great, by the way. If you have an employer that offers life insurance, max it out. Do everything you can to make the best of that, because in reality, those are usually a great opportunity for pennies on the dollar to get some coverage. However, even if you have life insurance through work, you owe it to yourself to have a personally owned life insurance policy. Because, first of all, you can have layered policies. Unlike auto or home, you can have more than one policy in place for life insurance, okay? You can have one that's a term life policy, you can have one that's a whole life policy, you can have one that's a universal life policy, and they can all basically be written with the same beneficiary. They can be written identically and have those layered on top of each other, so you have a financial plan, right? But more importantly, if you lose that job, that insurance is going with it, okay?
Yep.
So you need to know that you own something that's yours, so that you have the control over that. And let's say you started that at age 30, right? And now you're 50 and they've just let you go. Okay, now you're looking at pricing as a 50-year-old, which I promise you is decidedly different than it was when you were a 30-year-old. So yes, you owe it to yourself to have a personal, even if it's just a term policy, something that you personally own.
Well, and the other thing, when you gave that example, I started thinking of is here you are at 50, you're unemployed. Who knows? Maybe you're already behind a month or two on something, and they pull a credit report or they look at one of these other things, and you're unemployed, your credit's already shot, and here you are applying for a policy, and sometimes with different kinds of insurance, those may be factored in and not so positive. and
Right.
stuff.
The pricing is just going to continue to go up.
I mean, really, when it comes right down to it, is the younger you can, get into a policy, and especially if it's going to be a sizable one, probably the better off you're going to be because, as Lorna said, the younger you are, the better. I will tell you this, that we all have calculators, so that it's not just some, random like, oh, you need $1 million or, oh, you need $2 million. I mean, there really is a little science to this, and these calculators are pretty thorough. I mean, it'll look at, okay, what is your, do you own or rent? What's your mortgage payment? How many months of mortgage, or do you want to get the whole thing taken care of if you should, pass away? How many children do you have? Are they going to go to a state school or a private school? How old are they? One's 18, one's 7, one's 2. Okay, well, we need to plan for those. I mean, it's absolutely incredible to go through one of those calculators and then have it come up. And it'll also ask, what kind of insurance do you already have? So maybe it'll come up and say, hey, you need $1 million of insurance and you've got, 500,000 from a prior policy. Well, then, it's not going to, ask you to put in a million and now you got 1.5. If you need $1 million and you've already got 500, let's just do a policy for 500.
But again, let me emphasize
Yeah.
that if you go online to do that sort of thing, you are going to get inundated with everybody and their brother's cat trying to sell you life insurance. Okay, so. And I'm partial to live human agents for obvious reasons, but also because I think that we're able to kind of ebb and flow with what the individual family needs. So it doesn't have to be us, but I would say work with a person. Even if you want to use the online calculator, when it comes to that, it's so important. Work with a person that can actually walk you through the steps on how to get the right coverage for your family.
Does your website have a calculator on it?
I don't know. I really
can't
don't
remember.
know. I haven't looked. I apologize that I don't have that readily available for you. But, I do know that that's something that I can do.
Yeah.
If somebody calls me, and same sort of thing I know with you. I'm just letting people know, they may say, oh, that calculator idea, that's great. I'm just going to go online. I'm going to do this. And then literally 4,000 posts later, you are now in a life insurance storm that you cannot escape. So just FYI, if you want to do that and not necessarily be attacked by every life insurance company out there, you might want to work with an individual. Just my 2 cents worth.
And if they wanted to work with Lorna, how would they do that?
Again, give me a call. My phone and text is 417-225-2011. Or you're welcome to call my office number, which is 417-414-6366. Or you can go to my website. We mentioned that earlier if you want to go back to that. And they can reach you as well. I think all of your contact information is on.
Let's see if I've got the good short-term memory today. www.libertymutual.com/agent/Lorna, Lorna dash Hammock, Hammock.
Ta-da!
I did it! Yeah!
You win a coffee. Congratulations. I know, right? And you even brought in the people to cheer you on.
I know. So our time is quickly evaporating, and I see Matt over here giving me all kinds of hand gestures, and
Went and got a coat. He left, he came back, and now he has a different coat on.
Matt, our producer, he is a fantastic guy. None of these shows would be on the air, let alone do as well as they do without Matt.
No, and his golden voice gives these intros and outros some
I know.
real wow
Yeah.
factor, so we appreciate that.
Well, hey, in the last 30 seconds or so, anything that you wanted to cover that we didn't?
No, just remember that 2021 is fast approaching, and I'm not going to breed into the fear because our leadership has remained unchanged for 2020, almost 21 years. So none of that is ever up for a vote. We already know who our leader is. However, with the political climate right now as it is, I would suggest to you that if you have not done an insurance review, Please do that for yourself. You deserve to know what your coverages are. You deserve to know whether or not you're actually spending your money wisely or if you're overspending on something. And you deserve to talk to somebody who actually knows your needs and wants to be able to help you be a better steward for your family.
And with that, quick shout out to Jim and Pam Whining. Thank you for letting us have the weekly show, and Dr. Paul.
Absolutely.
Which is
An Axe Ministry.
An Axe Ministry and Axe Media. So thank you for watching. We'll be back next week. And if something does come up, by all means, give us a shout on the numbers and the emails that we provided earlier. Thank you so much. We'll see you later.
Thank you.